Oh my god. Incredible.
It's been a while.
About a month.
Really? Has it been that long?
Yeah, it
3
feels like
Uh
3
feels
weeks.
like forever.
yeah. 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Three
Feels like
weeks is quite a bit like a month.
well, that should mean
Yeah.
we've got content.
Oh shit yeah. I have things. I have things I could talk about stuff. Technically like 12 things if you want to like really math it out in the cheapest way possible, but don't do that because you'll just end up sad, you know.
A lot. A lot of
It
stuff.
is a lot. It's a
This
lot of stuff that I have not as much to say about as you would think.
hmm,
Yeah. Yes.
that's that's I feel whelmed by that. Not
Yeah.
under, not over, but
Yeah.
I'm whelmed. This is Press X the podcast about video games. We talk about video games and video game stuff because I think I don't know, there's probably enough news to talk about later that the internet is all ablaze. It's all a whole kerfuffle out there, but
Generally, yes.
generally as well. But first, let's talk about games
Mm.
because, well, I can get mine out of the way real quick because I've just been playing Death.
You've been hooked on that, hey?
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
I
You
I
love it.
do.
That's what happened.
Yeah,
You fucking love it.
I don't know.
What did you rate Lightfall?
I think I gave it a 6.
Okay, well, do we need to go back and maybe adjust that?
No,
Because the amount of time you're putting into it doesn't say 6 to me.
It does to me.
well, yeah, that from an objective lens, it's definitely from a subjective lens, it's still Destiny.
Right.
So yeah, I think a lot of the things they've done just make it a little bit easier to go in there and screw around with. I think I've mentioned before that they have loadouts now. So that's good. You can bounce between your different subclasses pretty easily, and it makes some of the higher end content a little more accessible when the legendary difficulty and the hero difficulty and all that stuff. Every enemy has specific shields that you've got to deal. There's always some kind of surge mechanic where this subclass is more powerful. So you've got to bounce between all those things. And before us, now you just press like 2 buttons. Wow, now I'm solar. Now I'm spark. So there's that. Uh, but I'll tell you what, Destiny 2 is a little rickety now. It has significant amount of downtime
Ooh.
Mm.
where she's just offline. And when it's online, there's lots of weapons that don't load. You will be holding placeholder where their weapon should be because it just doesn't load. The server won't do the thing.
Is there just too goddamn many of you on there? Is that what's happening?
I think it just was not designed to have this number of expansions bolted onto it. The engine just is not prepared for such nonsense. But they're committed to this now. They've said there's not going to be a Destiny 3 any meaningful future. Uh,
Okay.
I think they're lying because I think they have to redo. But yeah, I've been doing a little bit more with the PvP lately. Um, having got the logical endpoint of a lot of the content, doing some PvP, which I think is underrated. People give it a really hard time, but I think the matchmaking is actually reasonably good. It does a good job of pairing you up with people who are similar caliber. I haven't found that it punishes you too bad if you do well, and there are a couple of fun modes, mostly point control or typical deathmatch. But there's one where everybody just has like a scorch launcher, team rockets all the time.
Oh, fun.
I like it. People who like Destiny hate it, but I like it. I'm glad they have it.
How's that new class?
The new class is okay. I don't find that I gravitate towards it too much. Um, it's definitely the one that they want you to play.
Yeah.
A lot of the champion type enemies have specific weakness to a lot of the strand subclass. Uh, debuffs. There's one that suspends enemies up in the air like spider webs. A lot of the
That sounds
champions are
fun.
vulnerable to that. But yeah, I mean it's another thing. Wouldn't
Yeah.
say it's the one that ah that,
Yeah.
but they did put this thing on sale. I don't know if it's still on sale on the PlayStation Spring sale.
Lightfall?
Yep,
Oh,
and
that's nice.
the season pass as well. It was like I want to say 30% off.
Which is probably the price that it should have been when it launched.
Correct,
Mhm.
correct. But anyways, I'm on there if people want to play some Destiny. Even the free to play, I think quite a bit of it is actually free to play now.
You know what would get me back in there is if they added PSVR 2 support. I know that's
Hmm.
I know that that's never going to happen. I won't even say it's unlikely. I know that that won't ever happen, but I think that that would be pretty cool.
All that rickety talk really makes it seem like a pretty long shot.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll tell you what I have been doing, which I think is a life hack for PSVR 2 owners, is to play non VR games in VR.
hmm
You
Yeah, you
put
get that 120 hertz.
Yeah, you get a nice smooth frame rate. It's basically instant response time. There's no input lag that's perceptible.
Yep.
And when you're in the VR zone, it puts a screen in front of you. The screen looks massive. It's
hmm
like you're playing on a huge screen. Which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
That is cool.
And if it's too big, you can adjust it. I think there's 3 different settings for the
Yeah.
screen size. But yeah, the large setting, it definitely feels like you're in a movie theater.
hmm
It's cool.
You gotta move your head,
Yeah, yeah.
take a peek at all four corners. But yeah, that's me. Quick and easy. Now, James, got to get to you because you said you have like 12 things you can talk about.
Well, okay. I'm being a little shit when I say that. I in fact covered 2 separate game collections, which technically speaking add up to 12 titles.
Mega Man
So the
Battle
first
Network.
one, that's right, the Mega Man Battle Network collection, okay, which is 10 games, which is in itself is such bullshit because it's not 10 games, okay? What they do is there's 2 versions of 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay? Battle Network 1 and 2 are just like solo titles, and then they do it like Pokemon, where it's you get like, oh, there's like slightly different enemies or like different power ups or whatever for the last 4 games. They're like, it's 10 titles. No, it's 6. Shut up. Okay? I don't want to hear any of this hogwash. Nobody's going to play through both, for fuck's sakes. You're not going to be like, oh, I'm going to run through this one and it's appreciably different from this one. No, it isn't. Okay? In fact, I'm going to take it one step further and say that there's not a gigantic difference between the 1 through 6 because they're all Game Boy Advance games, and I've fired up each one. I was like, all right, see what it looks like, see how it plays, put some hours into it, kick the tires, right? And you could you could use a screenshot for one and be like, this is obviously the other game, right? And then just lie to a person and they believe you. Um, it's a series of incremental upgrades where you get like slightly different power ups, different enemies that you're fighting, um, little changes like that. But like the main characters are the same. It's like the same cast throughout all 6 games. It's just sort of a long, continuous story that you're sort of playing through installment by installment. The good thing is that they installed an easy mode to the series, which basically takes the Mega Man's standard Mega Buster, his weapon, and tweaks the power of it by 100 times. So basically, you go into a battle and you're like, boop, you just hit a guy once and he just explodes into fireworks, and that's it. He's dead. Doesn't matter who the enemy is. Doesn't matter. They crank the shit hose up so high on that gun that like everybody you fight is just like, oh no, I'm dead. So if you just like really want to get to the story of all 6 Mega Man Battle Network games and not worry about like, you know, fighting in any capacity, you could do that. You could just bulldoze your way through it and you're fine.
Did that
A lot
exist?
of
Did that exist in the original games, or is that a
no,
okay?
no,
I was
that is
gonna say because
that's a
that's like would be the first instance of story mode if it
yeah.
was actually, but no. Anyways, carry on.
No, yeah, yeah. You do still have to deal with a lot of mazes. It's a very maze-based game where they're like, we want to introduce you to some dungeons, and you're gonna explore them, and you will hate it. Or rather, I did a lot because it's just like all the corridors look the same. It's just like here's a bunch of identical-looking passages. One of them leads to the exit. The other one leads to fuck you, and you just have to figure out which is which. It's just it's a relic of an older style of RPG game design. Um, Although if you're playing the combat correctly, it's a really interesting experience because I'd never played any of these games before this. It's kind of an RPG, but kind of not because like the battle screen, you have freedom of movement within the different like squares that you set up on, and like so your reflexes sort of play into it. You know, like your twitch trigger reflexes. So when you're like you have to like time your shots and you have to like dodge things properly and you have to like watch out for like dangerous floor tiles and it's a very active RPG combat system. You can like buy upgrades to improve your stats and you have like a sort of deck of like 30 chips that you like lay out for attacks every turn and you can customize the shit out of that. So that's cool. Um, so there's a lot of potential depth there, but it's also very homogenous in some ways. It's a very interesting experience playing it for the first time. I'm assuming with you, if you've got nostalgia goggles on, this is like the holy grail of game collections. Where it's like, oh, it's all 6 RPGs in one place. Blah! But you know, for me, it was just a strange, curious artifact. Uh, Definitely worthy of exploring, especially if you're like a diehard Mega Man guy and you want to like, you know, fill this gap in your collection. But
Just to put a pin in that for 1 second. Just need to shout out Maya in the chat. Thank you so much for coming by. Maya's been a big supporter of the channel. She's actually a paid subscriber on Twitch. So just wanted to take the time out to shout you out. Thank you so much for coming by. She has been waiting to meet you two. So I'm glad that that could finally happen.
Oh, hey, Maya.
all right, well, hello, good evening, all that.
Maya, now the world's next Mega Man Battle Network fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully, fingers
Your
crossed.
stirring description of the entertainment value.
Yeah, sheer bang for your buck. It's the equivalent of like that fucking drum-sized thing of cheese balls you can get at Costco.
Ooh, nice.
Huh?
Yeah.
So in other words, it's gonna put you into a coma for a day and a half.
I mean, not automatically, but there is a
Right.
danger.
There's a little bit of self hatred involved too.
Yeah. Oh, a little?
Well, drum sized amount.
Yeah, a drum-sized amount of hatred.
Excellent.
Rhett, my man, what have you been playing of late?
Other than being on my 6th playthrough of Resident Evil 4, I have been playing so MLB. I guess yeah, I was saying last time that we were going to talk sports games since that's what I've reviewed over the past month. Should I talk about the one that I like or the one that I fucking hate first?
Well, let's go to Hatesville.
Okay, so PGA Tour, EA Sports PGA Tour.
Oh.
Whatever you can do to avoid playing this game, please do it. Because as it stands right now, it is a fucking shell of a video game. It's I gave it credit for it being nice to look at. It's actually got some of the best hair physics that I've seen in gaming. It's weird. You step out onto the links, and if you have long hair, like you'll actually see like individual strands blowing in the wind, and it's like dynamic. Yeah, I was actually like surprised to see that level of detail.
So is that where it all went?
That's where it all went. Exactly. That is where all of the money and all the effort went, because the game doesn't work.
Oh.
It doesn't work. Like just a small example that I used in my review was, so you start your career as a young up and comer, and you'll be offered a series of challenges to complete to earn experience. It's kind of like a golf RPG, similar to what PGA Tour 2K23 did. And so there's, again, for example, one small challenge that I did. There's the very first one, in fact, that they offered was go in and sink 5 putts, or you've got 5 shots, 5 putts, and if you sink all 5, you'll earn a gold. If you sink 3, you'll earn a silver. If you sink bronze, or if you sink 1, you'll get a bronze. So I'm expecting to be on the green to take these 5 putts, and I load up the challenge, and I'm 40 yards off the green doing a chipping challenge.
Okay.
So, and it wasn't just a one-off. I exited the challenge. I went back into it. I was on the same thing doing the chipping challenge. And if you're wondering, well, maybe you had to chip it onto the green and then putt. No, it gives you 5 chips and then it ends the challenge. So, yeah, you're picking one thing and you're getting another. And not only that, but when you're picking those things, getting through the menus is excruciating. It reminded me of playing a game from like the PlayStation 1 or the PlayStation 2 era, where you use like your L1 and R1 to scroll through the menus. You'll hit R1 and you're waiting 3, 4, 5 seconds for the page to turn.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
I'm just like, what the fuck is going on here? And the game. So I received a code for PC, and the PC version is completely broken. I literally couldn't play one round of 18 holes without the game crashing.
Oh.
So that was awesome. So I needed to request a PS5 code. The PS5 version is locked at 30 frames. There's no performance mode. There's none of that. So I'm like, what the fuck? What, like, if you had to lock the game at 30 frames, how the fuck do the menus at least not work? Like, what are we doing here? It's 2023. We're talking about Redfall dropping at 30 frames on Xbox. And like that shit is unacceptable. There may be some people that think that golf doesn't necessarily need to be at 60 frames, but it does. Like it's extremely noticeable. It's extremely laggy, and just it feels so off when you're taking a swing, you know? I was saying that also in my review, like that the shitty frame rate leads to miscues on your swing timing. It's just not as intuitive. It's not as smooth as you need a sports game to be, even one that involves as much standing around as golf does. It's crazy.
I'm going out on a limb here because I'm not speaking from any sort of wisdom, experience, or technical understanding. But my impression is that you're working with sort of like a series of 60 FPS character models, backgrounds, and rigging systems, sort of like slapped and squeezed onto a 30 FPS
Yeah.
operating field. So you
Yeah.
get like you're trying to like shove one thing into the other. Like they definitely design these rigs with these incredible levels of detail and fidelity, and they're like, well, this is going to look amazing, and it's designed perfectly for 60. We're not getting that though.
Not getting that. 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag, man. It's
Yes.
insane. It's insane that on a PS5 or a Series X, they couldn't get this to 60 frames. It just
Mm.
fucking blows my mind. I don't understand what's going on here. What is going on at EA? Like you go online and there's not a single comment that I've seen that's like, "Oh, it's actually okay at 30 frames." Every single person is just like, "What the fuck is going on here? This is unacceptable."
Thanks.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
a joke. But going back to what you're saying, James, about the visuals, yeah, they like the presentation is on point. That's the one thing I'll say. The commentary is great, and the course flyovers when you start a new round or even between the holes, fantastic. Everything looks fucking gorgeous. It's by far the most beautiful golf game you can play. It's just everything else is so lackluster. And I said in my review, I refuse to play another hole until they fix it. And I don't know if they're going to, but it's not good. It's really, really not good.
That's a tough pitch to say. We couldn't get it to 60 because
Okay.
there's not that much going on in a golf game. A
No,
little
it's
bit
not
of physics, one character to animate.
one character to animate. It's not like the crowd is, insanely detailed by any means. You'll see just like in from sports games 10 years ago, you look at the crowd and they look decent enough, but then you'll see 20, 30, 40 people doing the same motion with their hands, all at the same time. And it's just like what the fuck? Like this couldn't have been that difficult. It's been 8 years since they've released a golf game,
So, you
but
mentioned that this is EA, right?
oh, it sure is.
Well, that's what I was saying. Is there like a specific? Are they the ones that use the Frostbite engine?
Yeah, yeah.
Is that what this is?
Frostbite, yes, yes, it is.
Okay, because my understanding is that's an FPS engine, is it not? Like that's
Dude,
for first person shooters and
they
shit.
run FIFA at a buttery smooth 60 frames on Frostbite, and it looks fucking gorgeous.
Oh, okay,
Absolutely
so just
gorgeous.
no excuse whatsoever.
There's no excuse. The player models in FIFA look way better. The crowd models look way better. The physics work way, way better. Uh it's so much more realistic. It's just insane that they couldn't get this to 30 frames. One other thing though that I will say that I do appreciate about the game is that they they've implemented real life course data into each of their courses. So, for example, if you were driving off the tee in in St. Andrews versus Augusta, the ball's going to roll on the fairways differently, and
Okay.
that comes into play in the game. So the ball is going to roll more realistic, or the ball is going to roll how it rolls on St. Andrews, and it's going to roll how it rolls on Augusta, and it's going to roll how it rolls on Pebble Beach and Wolf Creek, et cetera, et cetera. So that sort of stuff is cool, but it's just like, man, fucking getting there is a fucking nightmare. Like, why the fuck would I want to play this when, again, 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag? I think that's just a perfect analogy for it. You can polish a turd, but it's still going to be a turd. I want to just confirm that this is running on Frostbite as well. I'm certain it
It
is. I don't think
it
EA
must be.
makes sports games anymore on anything other than Frostbite, right?
I think they all moved over.
Yeah.
The whole 30 versus 60 thing is
Yeah, it's on Frostbite.
it's what the internet is talking about right now, and Redfall is the target of that. I know.
We had a little discussion in the group chat, the COG group chat, and I am right there with the people saying that in 2023 releasing a game at 30 FPS without a performance option is unacceptable. It just is. And some people will say, well, no, 30, it's okay. And I'll admit that there have been examples of good 30 FPS versus lousy 30 FPS, but it doesn't matter anymore. It's 2023 and everything should be at 60 frames. The hardware is powerful enough now, unless you're playing on Switch, of course, but the hardware is powerful enough now to at the very least include a performance mode.
Yeah, and with Redfall, it sounds like, they went for this thing renders at full 4K. There's no reason to do that. There's
How
like
many people are actually playing in 4K?
that for one thing, but also reconstruction techniques are so good now.
Yeah.
You can reconstruct up to 4K and have almost no visual difference.
Yeah.
There's no reason to render at native 4K almost ever. And for the other thing, like Redfall just doesn't look that impressive that you're like, how
Man,
if it was bombastic and the best looking game I've ever seen, fine. But, then Sony comes out and drops the Forbidden West expansion, which looks unfucking believable
yeah.
and is at
Yeah.
60
Yeah. Yeah.
on a technically less powerful console. So,
For sure.
something's going on behind the scenes there. That's a
If
big issue.
if death
Well,
if if Deathloop launched at 30 frames and it didn't have a 60 FPS mode, people would like. There's no way that that game would have been in contention for Game of the Year.
Well, I
And
think
I don't
one of
think
the
Redfall
reasons
looks much better.
for that, just to chime in here, is that I'm pretty sure Deathloop didn't come out on the PS4, did it?
Good point. Yep,
Yeah.
that's
Whereas
fair.
everything that comes out for Xbox has to come out for all the Xboxes.
Yeah,
And as long as they keep d- clinging to this fucking strategy, we're gonna see, you know, last gen frame rates
yeah,
and less than stellar graphics
it's a
Yeah,
very
until
good
they,
point.
till they eventually let go of those older consoles.
and essentially, the Series S is an older console. It's as
Yeah,
powerful, about as powerful as a PS4 Pro.
yeah.
So you are shackling yourself to that. The other thing that I was thinking about that Xbox did this generation, which they've done in the past and it bit them, is split the memory pool. So on the Xbox One, they had a tiny amount of super fast memory and then a bigger block of slow memory. Ditto on the Series S and the Series X. They've got on the X, I think it's 10 gigabytes of really fast RAM, and then there's 6 gigs of slower RAM. That makes it hard to develop for these.
Mm.
You have to manage your memory very carefully and make sure it's not spilling over into the slower memory, or else you're going to slow things down and end up having to cap your stuff at 30. It just doesn't make sense in this day and age. Or at very least, drop the res and put a switch in there to run it at even 1080p and give us six.
It blows my mind. You look at the most common resolution and specs that are used on Steam. The vast majority of gamers are still playing at 1080. Like
Mhm,
vast.
mhm.
You know, I obviously I don't know the numbers for console players, but I would imagine that it's probably similar. And most people are still playing their consoles on 1080 TVs. Uh, maybe 1440, but still, it's like it's just mind blowing. It's mind blowing that this is where we're at. Where it's 2023 and we're talking about games dropping to 30 FPS.
Which brings up another topic because Xbox's giant feather in their cap, Starfield.
Hmm.
There's no way on earth that's running at on an X.
Oh my god. No way. This is never happening.
Like no.
Yeah.
Are they even able to, or does that go against their their uh, policy? Would they be able to release a performance mode on the Series X but not on the S? Have they ever done that?
I feel like they've had different modes across the two platforms, so
Yeah, because
technically
you're
they
right.
should be able to.
They really shot themselves in the foot with the S. You know, that is like if that's the if they always have to cater to the Series S, it's never going to be good. Things are just never going to be as good as they could be.
I mean, they wanted it to be a Game Pass box, and that's great. They sold a bunch of subs, but
Right? Sold a bunch of subs,
the
but yeah, like it,
the
it
Game
plays
Pass people
indie.
are getting upset now.
Oh man,
Like, where's the content?
the Series S is a fantastic indie game console. Plays, those 2D less than 1 gigabyte download games perfectly. Uh, and apparently it's a pretty good emulator if you get
It
that
was
set up,
before they blocked that. Can't
Oh,
run
did
the
they?
emulators anymore on Xbox.
Oh, man, I remember people talking on Reddit and YouTube videos saying that emulating on the Series S was basically the only reason to own the thing. Yeah. Well, you win some, you lose some, I guess.
I don't know. They've got to. The other thing that came out, I don't know if it was this past week or a couple weeks ago, was Ghostwire Tokyo,
Mhm.
that Tango GameWorks game that came out on PlayStation 5 a year ago, and it's kind of like middling reviews. I think it was like sevens and eights mostly.
Yeah.
It's been a year since that came out. It's now coming to Xbox. The Xbox is done. It runs worse. They've fixed none of the issues, and it runs worse on a more powerful console.
Yeah,
Like,
what was the problem with that one? I fired it up on my Series X just to like see what the deal was. Um the
Technically, or
Yeah, like what how is it running worse on the Series X? Like, do you know what problems came up or like?
If I'm recalling from Twitter correctly, it was lower resolution across the board, lower frame rate,
Okay.
and all the same problems the PS5 game.
Hmm. Okay.
Can't speak too much more to it. I didn't play either.
No.
But one last topic on the topic of frame rate, the one thing I will say I do like uh is what Sony has been doing with a lot of those modes, especially if you've got a display that's capable of 120 and has VRR. Uh, a lot of the first party games they've got a 30 mode, they've got a 60 mode, and they've got a high frame rate 30 mode,
Right.
which runs at
What?
40.
Yeah.
And I played through God of War at 40, and I found that to be an okay balance. Like, it's not
Mhm.
as smooth as 60, but it doesn't bother you as much because of the VRR.
Right. Yeah, they did something similar with Gran Turismo as well.
Yeah.
120 frame mode. I think it knocks the game down to I want to say 1080. But I mean GT7 is arguably one of if not the best looking games on the market right now, so you can kind of take that hit, but I don't think it's really necessary uh, to go past 60.
Anywho,
Yeah.
uh, you mentioned that kind of like a golf RPG. My
Yeah.
favorite golf RPG, Golf Story.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Lee Carvello's putting challenge.
Oh,
My bad. Yeah, Golf Story. The first game that I actually purchased when I got my Switch. I fucking love that game. You want to
it's
talk
so
about
fun.
charming writing?
Yep.
Oh my goodness. It's incredible. I was really sad to see the state that it's not Golf Story 2, it's Sports Story. Sports Story, the sequel launched in. I guess it's not really a sequel technically, is it? Is it
Mm,
more of a spiritual successor?
I didn't know that had launched.
Yeah, oh yeah, it launched last year, and I believe Jazz reviewed it, and
Hmm.
him and every other reviewer was just like, "Yeah, we are so disappointed because we love this series, we loved Golf Story, we wanted this to be great, but it's just completely ruined by technical issues,
Bummer.
all sorts of bugs and whatnot." But of course, that sort of thing can be ironed out. I've kind of just been waiting to get the word on the game being fixed, and I'm gonna hop into Sports Story.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I assume MLB The Show is better.
Dude, one of the greatest sports games I've ever played.
Okay.
Fantastic. I don't know if you want to keep hearing me ramble about sports games or do you want to go on to something else, James? What else have you been playing?
Hmm. I also covered the Advance Wars remaster, remake. I don't know what you'd call it. I don't particularly care. But it's the collection of the first two Game Boy Advance games that have been gussied up with some proper 3D graphics. And yeah, it's cool. It's cool going back to the world of Advance Wars, and uh, it's interesting seeing how that specific mechanical system holds up in a modern setting. I think I've just been really spoiled by Fire Emblem's ability to just rewind time whenever the fuck you want. Like Engage really ruined me for games like that because like in that one you could just like you're like, oh, I fucked up, I made a terrible mistake. You just rewind until you get to the point before you made it, and you just do something different and you're fine. But like older games of course don't have that. So I like you get into a protracted horrible battle and you fuck up at some point, you end up in a losing state, and you're like, well, geez, I guess I just let this play out or dip out and try again. I don't know. And like I'm just so spoiled by that little mechanical change. They have a like half measure where you can retreat to the beginning of a turn, but no further back than that. So if you've like completely fucked it, you're like, nah, I got to restart. But like otherwise, mechanically it's good. It's good stuff. It's very like um sort of relentless and remorseless because like you have the ability to make more units and you're not particularly attached to any individual unit. So like
Mm,
you're like, I don't really care if I lose like 30 of you winning this war. I still won.
yeah.
It's just like I don't give a shit. And like a lot of strategies can be around like, especially if you can make more where you're just like sacrificing somebody to like learn key information or like sending a scout out to get rocks just so you know like what's out there and you
Are,
feel totally fine about it. It's a slightly different experience. And
are are there any units that you do get attached to that you can lose? No. Okay.
your commanders don't go out in the field.
Okay.
They just run shit from like behind the scenes. Um
Ah, like real war.
yeah, pretty well.
Yeah.
Uh it's very like it's got a very interesting it's that standard rock paper scissors type matchup situation where like these guys go against these and so on and so forth. But it feels it's very easy to grasp, very tactile, it's very simple. Where like they make sense. Where like you have planes, you have anti-aircraft guns, you have soldiers, you have tanks, you have big tanks, you have artillery units, and they just you know what's gonna work against what. It just all kind of makes sense. Uh,
I haven't
yeah,
seen this in action. Paul, would you mind pulling up some footage of Advance Wars? I actually haven't seen the game in action.
I think I can do that.
Sorry to cut you off there, James.
Yeah,
Are you
keep
playing
yeah,
talking.
them on the Switch?
yes,
Cool. And how do they run?
fine.
Excellent. Excellent.
I didn't I didn't see any problems when I was running them through. Um, there's these like there's a lot of animations that you can turn off that like really speeds up pace of the battles. Um, they like there's some mechanics that they'll like introduce and then remove and then reintroduce. Like it's not necessarily like a steady staircase of like difficulty escalation. Because they'll be like, oh, this is a fog of war battle. Oh no, they've introduced fog of war. What are we gonna do? And the next map, you're like, we'll just make it a sunny day. It's fine
Mm,
for this fight. It's okay. You sort of get like plateaus and like sort of like scrape backs where it's just like, oh no, we'll make this one a little easier before we throw you into the shit. And like not every fight has the ability to replenish units. Sometimes you just have a certain amount, and you're like, all right, don't die. Good luck.
here we go.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's good. It's like if you've never played Advance Wars, you should fucking play Advance Wars. If you have played Advance Wars, it is quite a bit like you remember. Like there's the cosmetic changes are nice. But mechanically, this is more or less the same game. I think the mission order is slightly different.
Yeah.
Like they show up in different sequences a little bit. But like, yeah, it's the same game. It's the game you remember. And if you remember it being really frustrating after a while, that's still there. So, forewarned.
I had a
Uh,
very similar experience to that with Wargroove, where man, did it get to a frustrating point, and the difficulty spike was it was a spike, not a ramp. Where
Mm,
I was cruising, and then there was a mission where I was in tough, and I don't know. I feel like you got to do a decent job of warming people up to.
yeah.
yeah, it's interesting because I ran into a really hard wall in Advance Wars where I got into this fight and it was just like, fuck, how on earth am I supposed to do this? So I looked it up because again, it's a remake, right? So you can just go see how the old missions play out. And it turns out you just do like one or two little things differently, and then, oh geez, look at that! You won the mission. It's one of those. It's just very interesting because it's like in this case, I was using a different commander, so their artillery units were more effective. So they did more damage and they had better range. Well, they had better range, and you just sort of create like a little wall around the two entrances to your base, and then like just send out the right people. And like it's such a cheap strategy because it relies on the AI doing particular things and like just the way units behave because artillery can't move and shoot in the same turn. So you just keep them busy and then you can just maintain this wall around the two entrances. And it was just such this weird fucked up thing where I was like, this game got so hard. I'd be like, oh no, no. You just have to adjust your strategies to the limitations of the system you've been presented with. So you just have to be crafty and cheap and shitty, and then you can very easily get through the battles. And then it's just a matter of like every mission where you get stuck, you're like, okay, so what's the dumb, cheap, shitty thing I have to do to win this battle? What mechanic did they introduce at the beginning where it was like, pay attention to this, and you're like, okay, and then you do, and suddenly the battle goes differently. Yeah, it's one of those systems. When they introduce ocean combat, that's what that really fucking blows the map wide open. Because like anything that flies or anything that like goes through the water, when it runs out of fuel, it will crash or sink, and they use fuel every turn.
Really? A boat without
Yes.
fuel sinks. That's
Oh yeah.
interesting.
Yep. Or it can't move. I think is what happens. The planes will crash. The boat was just like it can go no further.
Hmm.
I don't remember because I never got to that point because the battle would just end before they ran out of gas or they die. Usually they die is what would happen.
And I'm
Mm-hmm.
those brave sailors.
Oh,
That's
fuck
right.
'em. Fuck 'em.
Watching
Yeah.
this gameplay, it makes me want to play my favorite one of these, Into the Breach.
Mm.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
That good game. Cool.
Yeah.
Brett, any other stuff you've been
Yeah. So MLB.
Okay.
Um, it's phenomenal. Like I was saying, I think it's. I mean, I've said in my reviews for the past few years that MLB, I believe, is the best sports game that you can get. I think it's the most realistic, the most authentic to the actual sport that it's trying to simulate. And 23, it's more of the same. It's more of the same. It continues the trend, but it makes adjustments in all the right places. There's a couple things that are a little irksome, so to speak. Uh, the there's new rules in MLB surrounding larger bases and the pitch clock and the ban on infield shifting. None of that stuff's been implemented, and
Okay.
that
Oh.
that I don't understand why. The pitch clock I kind of do because the uh, the real life pitch clock is still way too long for video game baseball. You know,
Mhm.
the time between pitches is only a few seconds in the game, so it's to implement a pitch clock and actually allow players like 15 seconds between pitches, that wouldn't be good. But I also feel like they could just sort of, you know, adjust the time of the game pitch clock, the video game pitch clock, and sort of amend that issue. But the big thing about the game this year, I guess there's two big things. The audio is much improved. The sound of a ball coming off a bat or hearing players in the dugout celebrating or getting angry with themselves, things like that. That is I think one of the biggest improvements I've seen in this game in a long time, just to add to the overall the overall immersion. It's nice. It's so nice to hit a big home run and get your team back into the game or take a lead late in the game and actually hear the guys in the dugout cheering each other on and celebrating it.
Hmm.
It's I don't know, it adds a whole different level of immersion to it. It's crazy. It's very good. But the big thing that they added this year were these Negro League storylines. These Negro League players that I think that there's 9 of them, I want to say. But yeah, they have this mode that it's narrated by Bob Kendrick, who's super charismatic. He's the president of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, and he does an immaculate job of narrating you through the end of segregation in baseball. And
Nice.
it's fucking incredible what he does and what, you know, the way it was written, the way it's directed, um the care and attention to detail they put into each moment. So, you know, uh Jackie Robinson, for example, you'll play through basically his entire time in the Negro Leagues and then a couple games into the majors when he joins the Dodgers. And it's they just do an immaculate job of kind of putting you in that time period. You know, all the fans will be dressed in appropriate attire. The stadiums are on point. The vehicles outside of the stadiums, it all just really feels like, you know, it's baseball from almost 100 years ago.
And so,
Um,
how do they bring that into the experience? Is it just a specific mode, or do they present it like
yeah,
over time?
it's a specific mode.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that you pick on the main menu, and you'll go into it, and then you'll have an option to select between. Again, I think it's 9 different players. And then each of them will have between 8 and 10 different moments that you can play as. And yeah, it's a fantastic way to learn about the history of baseball. And there are some lines that were written in there. I used one in my review, but man, I never thought that I would get I would almost have a tear in my eye playing a sports game. But
Mhm.
hearing Bob Kendrick narrate the story of Jackie Robinson, and he says, in a game predicated on losing, he couldn't lose. And this was in relation to him joining the Dodgers. He says, in a game predicated on losing, he couldn't lose, and he didn't. You
Nice.
know, just stuff like that. That's extremely well written. Bob Kendrick delivers the lines perfectly, and you know, it just makes you fucking. It makes you root for the history of baseball. You know, it makes you root for these people and all the shit that they had to overcome and ending segregation in baseball. I mean, you know, it's something that you know, if you're a fan of the game, you should know you should know the history of some of the best players to ever put on a pair of cleats. So yeah, I think that they absolutely nail that. You know, they yeah, it doesn't feel like some, you know, tacked on last minute kind of thing. It feels very much like you know, a focus point, a center point to the game.
That's nice to hear because I think it's really easy and I think really tempting these days to try and pretend that history didn't happen.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
those who ignore history are doomed to repeat it. All that blah blah. So I
Yeah.
would applaud them for, I think, taking a little bit of a risk to put something like that into the game with
Yeah.
how touchy society can be about a lot of those topics.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They don't shy away from things either. You know, you'll hear a lot about players going from town to town and literally they weren't even able to go into a restaurant to get a meal or they weren't able to find a hotel. Um, yeah, you know, it's pretty cool to see, you know, this history be given a bit of a spotlight because they deserve it.
Do
You know,
you
these players deserve it.
Sorry, I was gonna say, do you think that a mode like that is enough to bring someone who's not typically a sports fan
No.
to the game?
No, no. No. I don't think that's going to sell anybody. Anybody who's not a sports fan, if you're not a baseball fan, I don't think that it would sell anybody on that. But if you're already, you know, involved, it's a fantastic addition to the game. And they haven't done anything like this, man, I don't think maybe ever.
Yeah.
You know, it's always just been, you know, you've got your road to the show mode, you've got your franchise mode, you've got your Diamond Dynasty, and away you go. I can't remember the last time they've actually added like an entirely new mode based around storylines. And it just opens up so many things because obviously the end of segregation in baseball, and you know, going back to that Jackie Robinson the storyline, it's really interesting to hear about how not only did Jackie end segregation in baseball, but he was a major contributor in ending segregation in America as a whole. He really was like on the forefront of that. And so yeah, I was going to say that this lends itself, or this could lead into all kinds of different storylines, all kinds of things in the future that they can do. Because again, uh, the Major League Baseball integrating is not the only, interesting part of baseball history. There's a lot of stuff to explore, and yeah, we could see, over the next few years, a lot of cool things done there.
Yeah, maybe a cool proof of concept for what they can do in the future.
Yeah,
Expand
yeah,
on that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Wait, this one's on Game Pass too, I think.
Yeah, it is. But I've actually heard people saying that it doesn't run as well on Xbox. So, so yeah,
Zing!
yeah.
Come on, Xbox, get your shit together.
Yeah.
Blow us all away and give us Starfield 4K 60.
Yep.
I'm just gonna say it. I said it before. I'm gonna say it once more. If anybody out there has a capture card set up for any reason, for reviews, for any editing, for any cool shit like that, I need you to plug that in and keep it running while you're playing Starfield, because you are gonna see the funniest shit of your life. At least that's the hope. You know what? I'm not gonna say it with any sort of authoritative bent, like I know it's gonna happen. I believe in my heart it's gonna happen. I want it to happen because this is Bethesda, and that's the good stuff kids go for. Okay, that's what they fucking do, and I believe they can come through for us in this, what will be their finest hour, as they deliver the wonkiest, wackiest, most unbelievable fucking glitches ever in the history of the company.
Yeah.
I think together we can assemble and put out into the world some amazing glitch compilations in that first month.
James, they're trying to bring ship combat to the game. It is going to be an absolute goat show.
Like they're barely able to do gunplay. They're barely able to do gunplay unless they slow the game down to almost a frozen state, and they allow you to select individual body parts to target. That's the only way that the gunplay works.
Yeah,
Do you think
you know,
are they gonna somehow nonsense that mechanic into this?
Oh
yes,
man, they would be
yes.
stupid not to have VATs in this game.
Yeah.
It would be absolutely stupid not to. Uh, Case
It,
in
it'll,
point, Fallout 76. That shit sucks because well, I mean, there's more reasons than this, but to me, the number one reason that it's pretty much unplayable compared to other Fallout games is it doesn't have VATs.
Well, it's got
yeah,
air quotes fats.
yeah. They'll just be like, "Oh, we're in the space world. You got a little implant in your brain
Yeah,
that lets you
totally.
you flood it with chemicals." It's like that shit they do in Judge Dredd, the 2012 one, where it's just like put the slow mo in your brain. You're like, "All right, I can fucking fight now." It's just
Exactly.
like,
Man, it'll be easier to explain in Starfield than it is even in Fallout, but man, you better believe they're gonna have something like that in there. I'll be surprised if the new Elder Scrolls doesn't have something similar.
I'll be
like
surprised
that
if the
game's
new
ever
Elder
coming
Scrolls
out.
at
If
all.
that ever
Yeah.
comes out. Yeah.
Prove me wrong, Xbox. Prove me wrong.
Yeah, pretty please.
Uh,
Yeah.
Was that a Seymour Skinner quote there? A little reference? No? Okay.
uh, I am mesmerized by this baseball.
Man, it's amazing. Like it really is. Uh it's really fucking cool to see like when a pitcher's delivering a fastball, to see like the exertion on his face as he follows through and delivers the pitch.
Yeah, you
It's
can
just
see it looks weighty.
that sort of detail you just don't get in other sports games. The way the uniforms move with the body, the way they get creases and wrinkles in them, they get dirty throughout the game. You know, whether you're sliding on grass or you're sliding on dirt, everything just feels very, very realistic. One other big thing about the games that fans of the series should be happy to know is that stats seem to matter more than ever now. So if you've got a lousy third baseman, it's not going to be a guaranteed play from third to first anymore.
Hmm.
In previous years, it's like you get a ground ball to third base, you're going to throw him out at first every single time. But if you got a shitty third baseman now, his stats are going to come into play more than ever, and you're going to be overthrowing it more than ever. Or if there's a towering fly ball hit out to center field and you got a shitty center fielder, his jump is going to be delayed. So the way he reads the ball is going to be different than it was last year. And it's not going to be a guaranteed can of corn anymore. For the most part, this is still baseball and, routine plays are routine plays. But offense has definitely been cranked up in that sense that, stats matter more than ever. And if you got lousy players in the field, they're not going to be just fucking machines that make every single play. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. I love it.
Any other games anybody's played or?
I will briefly mention that I finally started playing Forza Horizon 4 because I had not. And I'm happy to report that it's more Forza Horizon, which was what I wanted, and I got it, and I'm happy about that.
Interesting.
Driving on the left side of the road is fucking weird. The end.
Have you stopped playing 5?
I kind of got what I was going to get out of it. Like,
Fair
I
enough.
did more or less every regular race and like got to the end of the story, quote unquote, and I was like, okay, I will see what 4 has to offer because I just get through everything that they have to offer in like the Game Pass version without like the DLC and shit. I'm like, thanks, that's all I need.
Yeah.
Because I'm not like a super talented racer. I'm not the worst. I'm not great. So I'm not like looking to like do any crazy refined high level in game type shit. So it's just like I get through the main body of content. I'm like, okay, that's what I want.
Horizon 4 does have infinitely more sheep out in the fields.
It
You know,
does.
low rock walls from the 1600s to drive through.
And destroy, yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I
More
appreciate that.
variety in the biomes too, isn't there? Can't you go
Mm,
It
between?
it had the season system, so it was like
yeah,
the
Oh,
map
okay.
what
Right.
or 4 maps.
Gotcha.
yeah. So there's kind of more, but kind of less because like the Mexico map in 5 actually covers a lot of different kinds of territory, whereas like a lot of the UK looks pretty similar.
Yeah.
But you do get it in all 4 seasons where Mexico doesn't really have those.
Right.
Um and I really hate at least one of the seasons. So that's cool.
Winter?
Winter can suck a hot dick. That's
I was gonna assume,
exactly
yeah.
right.
So are you sliding more in the snow?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not great. I mean, it's just me and my old pal, Mr. Ford Focus, fucking ride or die to the end. So I don't have
Nice.
that many problems.
Yeah,
But
yeah. That's good times.
yeah, as soon as I unlock that car, I'm like, sweet, that's me.
Yeah.
Done and
I'm
done.
done. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so
The
good.
Ford Focus. Yeah.
I just
37,000 credits.
yeah, I just fucking I don't know what else you need, man.
Yeah. Oh fuck, man! All them supercars and shit. Nah, they can kick rocks.
Well, it's because they act as a fucking artificial difficulty slider. Because when you
Right.
get like an A rank car, everybody else in the race drives A ranks, and if you show up in an S1, they're like, "Well, I guess we're also going to do that." I'm like, "Well, fuck."
Right. Do you find that 4 is it generally more difficult than 5, or vice versa?
No, the opposite actually. Um, 5, I think I actually turned the difficulty down a notch for most of my playthrough, whereas like I've stayed at the standard in 4. If I said that right, yeah. Yeah, 5 I think 5 was when I was still like figuring the system out. And then 4, it's like riding a bike, where I'm like, oh no, I remember all this. This is greasy. We're fine. We're good. Let's go. Yeah.
All right. Uh, moving on.
Moving on.
Been There was quite a bit in the last few weeks about Tears of the Kingdom. How are you feeling about that thing?
So good. I'm so excited. Oh my fucking god. It's going to be amazing.
Okay.
Every time they show gameplay, I'm like,
The
you're like, come.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say you can like jam a stick into a rock and then suddenly you have an improvised weapon and it's just like, what kind of objects can I smash together to make weapons? What kind of vehicles can I make? What kind of flying machines? What kind of shit can I do? And it was just like reeling. I'm like, I can do so many things. And then they showed a story trailer and I was like,
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of options, a lot you can do. When I watched the most recent gameplay trailer, I thought a lot of the time, do I want to do any of it? I'm not sure. I'm not sure I want to play the improvised weapon breakage simulator.
I was gonna say, if those weapons that you're creating are breaking within a few hits, then that's not gonna be fun.
I also had
yeah.
had a good chuckle when the narrator was like, "We need to call Link wielding the sword of legend that will break 3 strikes."
Yeah.
But anyway, James, carry on. You're mad hyped about this.
Yeah, well, it's well documented. I have very different feelings on the weapon breaking system. I think it is a good and necessary addition to the world of the Legend of Zelda, because it forces you to play a certain way, and I really fucking appreciate that. And I think as far as like the weapon fusion system, I don't think you have to use it. I just think for the first several hours of play, right, where you're like, because there's that in Breath of the Wild, you had times where like you actually couldn't get a hold of weapons very easily, and you had a lot of trouble finding good shit. So like it's a great buffer system where you're like, well, I don't really need anything good. I just grab 2 items and smash them together, and then I have a fucking weapon. I'm good to go. Who gives a fuck? I'm ready to rock. And then later, when every chest is exploding with swords, shields, and axes, you don't necessarily need it much, and maybe even that fusion system will come in handy when you're, I don't know, smashing 2 weapons together. Who fucking knows, man? That's the cool thing about these games, is that whatever they tell you you can do, generally you can do more. And then
Yeah.
people like, there's a Twitter account that shows up in my feed now who's still doing insane trick shots and stuff in Breath of the Wild like 6 years later.
Yeah.
So like the toy box is getting blown wide open, man. Like, and like the story looks cool, looks interesting, looks like there's gonna be like a lot of good interesting shit happening. Um Matthew Mercer playing Ganondorf, which is like really practically the best case scenario for who would voice him. Like, I can't really think of a lot of other people who do voices in video games regularly that I would want in that role. Like, I really think that Matt's gonna fucking crush it. Um, yeah, I just really looking forward to having this big, crazy world where it's just like, how do I want to solve this problem? I don't know, any way I fucking want, man.
Yeah.
Or it's just like it just people might be like, oh, it's just more of the same, and I'm like, perfect, genuinely perfect. But that would have been more than enough. If they were just like, it's Breath of the Wild 2, we changed nothing. I was like, fuck yes, I'd be so into that. Just like new challenges, new dungeons, whatever, I'd be fine. But they didn't do that. They expanded it. They gave us new mechanics. They basically doubled the size of the fucking map. So like, yeah,
Yeah. Just looking at this footage here, like, yeah, sure, it looks like more of the same, but it looks better. It looks like a better game. It looks like the next logical
yeah,
step.
Yeah.
Right? Uh, and I mean, was this not reviewed, rated, critiqued as one of the greatest games of all time when it came out?
Yeah,
Like,
if I'd been the one.
is more of the same a bad thing?
Oh man,
Right?
no.
I mean, I hope not. Like I love Breath of the Wild, but I'm worried that I don't want to do that again. I hope I do, and
Uh,
I hope that the typical Nintendo charm of their games are fucking amazing, top to bottom, comes through. But I'm not as blown away and hyped for this as I was.
hmm.
Strictly speaking, I'm the same way. Okay, because I remember when Breath of the Wild, when they were like, here's the release date, here's the big trailer, that moment, I think it was like January 2017. I was like in my room at my desk in my little office, like sobbing, screaming, jumping up and down on my desk, like smashing my fists on the wood, and I'm just like, oh my fucking god, revelation is upon us, and I was just like, and I like lost my life to that fucking game for the better part of like 2 or 3 months. So like, no, I don't think they can exactly reproduce that experience, but like, it's gonna be really good.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the? Sorry to go back to this Xbox fan, but the insanity of trying to release Redfall in the same window as this,
Oh,
and specifically between this and Jedi Survivor.
Oh yeah.
yeah. I
Good
guess
luck.
I guess if there's people who are like exclusively Xbox people who don't like Star Wars, then this is their week, man. This is their time. They're gonna have such a fucking great run. But like, we don't think those people exist because that doesn't apply to us. Like, I'm all three of the games you listed, I have at least some interest in. Like Redfall, I will absolutely play when it comes out, and I'm gonna fucking maybe book a couple of days off for fucking Tears of the Kingdom, and I'll surely play Jedi Survivor if I ever finish the first one.
Fuck me, I've been raging at
Yeah,
Fallen Order on
yeah,
stream. Oh
okay,
man, it's been bad.
You playing
okay.
the hardest difficulty or what?
Oh, I think I'm on regular, whatever.
Okay, so what are you raging about?
Man, the game at the end of the day, it is a poor man's Souls clone. And I knew that it was trying to be a Souls game going into it, but like it's cool for the first hour or two. It works well. It's kind of like Souls meets Uncharted, you know?
Yeah.
But the further you get into it, it's just like it's got a shitty map, a very shitty
Oh,
navigation
yeah.
system. Uh and what drives me nuts is that okay, so each enemy will have like their stagger meter. You deplete that stagger meter, you get one hit before the stagger meter replenishes. It it wants to be a Souls game, but it is way, way more punishing, way more unfair than Souls games are. Another thing is iframes. Iframes are essentially non-existent, I feel, in Star Wars, whereas Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Elden Ring, iframes work as you would expect. I can't count the number of times where I've I'll dodge an attack and it'll be good, and then I'll do the same dodge the next time this enemy does that attack and it won't work. That sort of shit has just been driving me fucking banana sandwich. Uh, and well, no, I'm gonna finish the game, but I was playing this one in anticipation of the sequel. I don't think I'm gonna be playing the sequel soon. Maybe when it comes down in price. I will say though, it sounds like they've made some adjustments or the adjustments that I needed to be made in the original. Fast travel.
Oh,
There's going to be access to a blaster, so you'll have some long range combat. And apparently they've got that fucking what's the guard? What's Kylo Ren's cross guard?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna give you Kylo Ren's lightsaber, so that sounds pretty cool. Yeah, man, it feels like it tried too hard to lean into the Souls thing.
I think it was pretty ambitious. Uh,
Yeah,
given what that team had worked on before,
yeah,
and all things considered, the gameplay is what it is. It's a little rough around the edges for sure, but I feel like when I played, it's been a couple of years for sure, but I feel like when I played it, it was a lot of the time it was the story that was kind of keeping me going because I wanted to see where it was going to end up, where it was going to
yeah,
head. So
yeah. It's well
I don't know where I
directed.
was going with that.
It looks good. The cutscenes look good. It's very well acted. That was one thing I was mentioning last night during the stream is that it is very well acted.
Yeah,
Everybody's doing a good job. But yeah, it I don't know. Like it needs to. I think it needs to lean more into the action adventure kind of thing as opposed to being a fucking cheap Souls clone.
yeah, we'll see what they decide to do with the second one for sure.
Yeah. What's going
It-
on here in this Breath of the Wild or this Tears of the Kingdom footage? Zelda or Link just made a cock out of these giant logs here. What's he about to do with this?
the twig and berries, if I ever saw one.
Yeah, right.
Well, it's just it's different situations require different kinds of weapons, some of which are enormous wooden dongs. You know,
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Breath of the Hog, man.
Breath of the
Breath of the Hog.
Can't wait to see streamers going for the hog run. Nothing but
Yeah.
hogs all the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's I'm really curious to see what sort of unintended
Oh.
shit they get into where it's like, well, we created this physics system with these different objects that are interactable. We didn't think players would do this, but they immediately did. One of those things. I'm really curious what kind of shit that people are gonna discover. And
Right.
me when I'm playing for like
Man,
4 solid days.
if you thought people were coming up with crazy stuff in Breath of the Wild, this is gonna get nuts.
Yep.
Like you want to talk
Definitely.
about a physics playground?
Yeah.
Holy shit!
Definitely looking forward to some Twitter posts where it's like, oh no. Oh, come no.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, man.
What else is going on? Any other news that's been out there?
I mean, to me, the biggest piece of news that I've seen in a long time, Donna Burke, who Metal Gear Solid fans will know that name.
Hmm?
Donna Burke recently tweeted a photo of her holding a snake eater guidebook or piece of artwork or something like that. And she labeled the tweet recording in progress. I think that this is one of the biggest pieces of evidence that we have in regards to a Snake Eater remake. I mean, you see the tweet? See the tweet?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
what else could that be? She's the one that sang Snake Eater, the iconic theme song. What else could this be?
Well, it's some stories are saying, hey, it's not that. It's not that. It's for a song. Recording Snake Eater. I don't buy
What?
that.
Just for shits and gigs? Why the fuck would she be recording this again?
That
Unless
sounds
they're
like a panicked backpedal of
well, exactly, because it's not like anybody's announced this. So if Donna Burke is tweeting this out and essentially announcing the game, of course they're going to ask her to backpedal on it. As literally everybody who's ever leaked something early is asked or has done.
Yep.
You know?
I don't know anything.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I was on what's the one everybody says? Ambien. Yeah, Ambien.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just snorting in my bathroom, and then I started talking about September release dates. Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, if they were gonna remake one, probably three is the easiest to remake.
Yeah.
Not because it's not complicated. Just the structure of the game is mostly modern, but the scope is a little bit smaller.
Mhm.
You wouldn't have to overhaul too many.
so I have a
Right.
question, Brett. You want in your heart the Metal Gear Solid games to be remade generally in some form. You're like, yes, please, God, let's do this. Let's go. Metal Gear Solid remakes, all aboard. Chugga chugga choo choo.
I mean,
Yes.
especially if they're going to be as good as the Resident Evil 4 remake, then yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So my follow up question is, do you think Konami can do this without Hideo Kojima's involvement because
Yeah,
he
absolutely.
won't be involved?
No,
You
absolutely.
you don't
Because
you don't think in remaking this they're gonna like lose something essential? You know what I mean? Like they're gonna like create something kind of like a homunculus, sort of like a lifeless
well,
automaton.
it depends on what their philosophy is. If they, I mean, if they're bitter at Hideo and they actually want to change the games, then yeah, that could be an issue. But to me, the blueprint is there. They need to just take what's there and make it look better. That's it. You know,
Yeah. Okay.
maybe make MGS1 play a little bit better, which they essentially did with the Twin Snakes. But um,
Was that one that Hideo was involved in when they did
Twin
Twin Snakes?
Snakes, he was not involved in Twin Snakes.
Mm.
That
What what
was
what was your thoughts on that one compared to the original? Was it a good remake?
uh it looked good, but I definitely prefer the original because they
Okay.
re-recorded the voice the voiceovers. They re-recorded all the lines. They brought the same actors back to replay their parts, but there were a lot of lines that weren't delivered with the same sort of gusto, so to speak, and it threw me off. Vulcan Raven in particular, I remember some of his stuff just didn't sound as good as it does in the original.
Huh.
So,
Okay.
uh, yeah, it was nice to see the characters look as good as they did in MGS2, but yeah, the voiceover work kind of threw me off there. But
Huh.
it also added, the ability to like shoot in first person and stuff like that. So yeah, it improved on stuff. The funny thing about that though is that what people realized was being able to shoot in first person. I don't want to say broke certain parts of the game, but it made certain parts of the game
It broke certain
specific.
parts of the game.
Yeah, right. Well, the one part that I can really think of is running up the tower before the helicopter fight, the Hind D fight. Uh, yeah, being able to shoot enemies in first person, it kind of took away from the mm,
Yeah,
sort of
the
yeah,
tension. Same with the
yeah,
Ocelot fight.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Ocelot became pretty much a joke.
For those who don't remember, Revolver Ocelot fight had you running in a circle around a machine of some kind, and he could bounce bullets and you couldn't.
Yeah,
But also,
yeah,
who's to say that Kojima's not involved?
yeah. I mean,
Kojima.
yeah,
Kojima's to say, I just
Yeah, but who could trust?
that's true.
I follow him on Twitter. First of all, great idea if you haven't done it. Amazing Twitter follow. He loves movies, talks about them all the time, has great recommendations, great taste. He's always hanging out with the coolest fucking people, talking about the projects he's involved in. Now the DS2 is underway. He's just a machine of fucking behind the scenes photos and stuff like that, and just like candid shots. It's awesome. You know, great follow if you haven't. But also, I feel like if he had any sort of like repaired relationship with Konami in any capacity, I feel like there'd be some evidence of that, right? Like he would have mentioned something, be like, "Oh, I met with this guy," and it was just like, "It's great that we can fucking talk again," or like that meeting would have happened at some point, like you know what I mean? Where it's just like we would have heard by now at least that first step of like, well, I've reconciled with these people. And the fact that we haven't to me indicates that like I don't know if it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
could see that, but I could also see an intermediary like PlayStation being the broker
Yeah.
of listen, these were huge back in the day. It was a PlayStation franchise. Talk to Konami, talk to Kojima. They don't have to talk to each other. Make this thing work.
Mhm. This article, it does mention something that going back to James' questions about Konami, whether I think that Konami could actually do this right in what does it say here? 2022. MGS 2 and 3 were delisted due to licensing issues with some of the historical footage they use. So that could be an issue. I could see yeah, either I mean, they're gonna have to come up with some sort of replacement if this is actually happening, but yeah, I would imagine that the, historical footage is gonna look different. Um, so, we'll have to wait and see if this happens, and if it does, what they actually do with that, but, yeah, that could be something that I could see people being like, this isn't quite as good."
Yeah.
Hmm.
To me, like, I've always said, I don't think that they should remake 3 or 2 or 1 for that matter. I think that they should remake Metal Gear,
Yeah.
right? Like they should remake Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2, the only 2 games that we've only ever seen in 8-bit. Remake that shit. Make that shit modern.
Yeah,
Give me the
that would be cool.
continuation after 5, Give me MGS 6 where you're playing as young Snake and you're taking out Big Boss or
Or are
the
you?
supercomputer. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean they did some interesting things with the MGS5 story that make Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 more like they could really expand on this.
yeah. Yep.
Also, let's not forget that Konami did make Metal Gear Survive on their own.
Jesus Christ.
That game sucks.
Man, that's putting it lightly.
Okay, so not a ringing endorsement.
Yeah.
Well, I thought maybe it was going to be but it turned out to be not so. We're currently watching a 25-minute trailer. TGS 2004.
Wow.
25 minutes. Jesus. They
Yep.
really went for it, huh? They really went for the gold.
Well, they at least
Yeah.
wanted it to feel like a Kojima.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
A senseless, long trailer. Words that have little to no connection to anything.
I mean, yeah, the trailer might be a little senseless, but I never felt like I never thought that Kojima wasted any screen time in these games.
No.
You know? People may say argue, oh god, the fucking hour-long cutscenes in the game, but yeah, that's what Metal Gear is. It was always supposed to be Kojima. Kojima is a huge movie buff. You know that he wanted to be, maybe still wants to be, a Hollywood director. And this is as close as he ever came. Death Stranding is directed very much like a Hollywood movie as well, but this is Metal Gear was always his ode to Hollywood, and he did it better than anybody. He really did.
All right. Should we take off? Should we get out of here?
We could definitely do that, yeah.
Anything else? Oh, yeah. I wanted to ask James one question before we leave.
Yeah.
I saw that you didn't take the Dead Island 2 review.
Well, I told them I didn't want to do it on PC
Oh, okay, fair.
because I was worried it would color my experience in a negative way. And so what they did was they gave it to somebody else,
Yeah.
which I anticipated because generally when companies have a PC code to give out, that's the one they prefer to use, and it's like pulling teeth to get them to do a console code. And it's just easier to like, well, then somebody else can take the PC code, and that's again perfectly normal. So yeah, no, I passed on that one.
What?
I'm eagerly awaiting the big list for the next month because I really want to see what else I can sink my teeth into because I'm definitely not reviewing Zelda.
No, why not?
No, that plum is going to someone else.
Is it confirmed who it's going to?
Yes, it is.
Let's talk about that offline.
Yes.
That sounds like a can of worms.
Oh yeah. Okay.
But Dead Island 2, what I've heard about that is it really depends on your expectation. If you're
Mhm.
looking for a way to punch and hit zombies for hours and hours on end, perfect. If you want anything other than that, anything more than that, you're going to be sorely disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's about that. On
Yeah.
that note, friends.
On that note, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's been a pleasure
Great
as
plan.
always. You've been
Well,
listening and or watching. We appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank
James,
you.
James is pointing if you're just listening.
Oh yeah.
Right at you. Right through your headphones.
Yeah.
So go play some games. There's gonna be some stuff coming out between now and the next time we talk with you. So
Hell yeah, there is.
play some stuff. We'll play some stuff. We'll come back. We'll talk about it. Everything will be great. Everything will be grand. No problems whatsoever. Not a one. And until then, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other, and we will see you right back here next time on Press X, the
Bye.
podcast.